Thank you, Jenny, for playing and sharing your love and talent with us, and to all those who help put service together each and every Sunday. Today, we're going to look at John chapter 4, verses 27 through 39. We're continuing to look at Jesus and the woman at the well. If you haven't been here the last few weeks, don't worry about it. We will get you everything you need to know. As we read, John chapter 4, verses 27 through 39. Just then his disciples returned and were surprised to find him talking with a woman. But no one asked, "What do you want?" or "Why are you talking with her?" Then, leaving her water jar, the woman went back to town and said to the people, "Come, see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Christ?" They came out of the town and made their way toward him. Meanwhile, his disciples urged him, "Rabbi, eat something." But he said to them, "I have food to eat that you know nothing about." Then his disciples said to each other, "Could someone have brought him food?" "My food," said Jesus, "is to do the will of him who sent me and to finish his work. Do you not say, 4 months more and then the harvest?" I tell you, open your eyes and look at the fields. They are ripe for harvest. Even now the reaper draws his wages. Even now he harvests the crop of eternal life, so that the sower and the reaper may be glad together. Thus the saying, one sows and another reaps, is true. I sent you to reap what you have not worked for. Others have done the hard work, and you have reaped the benefits of their labor. Many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did. Well, listen, today we're really wrapping up this sort of small mini study of our look at the woman at the well within a larger study as we've been studying the Gospel of John, but it is part 3. And just like movie sequels that after they crank out one after another, sometimes you get to part 3, your interest is waning. I knew we had to get a catchy subtitle, so we're calling it Part 3, when the pastor was drunk at church, to hopefully pique your interest. And just in full disclosure, as we talk about it, I'm going to share a personal story, but before the pastoral relation committee starts putting together an emergency meeting after service, do understand I'm not talking about anything that has happened since I have been here at First Baptist in Charles City. And really the title's probably a little bit misleading because I'm not even talking about anything from my life as a pastor. But the fact, I don't drink at all anymore. I don't condone it as a wise thing, as particularly excessive use of alcohol, but there was a time in my young life where I was a party guy. I drank quite a bit, and I did many dumb and unwise things because of those behavior. But I was also raised a good Midwest boy. I was raised to be responsible, to do and follow through with the things you said you were going to do. Sometimes in my young life, those two things would run into conflict, such as one Saturday night, when Saturday night turned into the wee early hours of Sunday morning, and I had agreed to run the sound system at church the next morning. So as I was partying on and living the wild life at about 5 o'clock in the morning, I said, well, it's probably time to call it quits and sleep it off for a few hours so I could be ready and responsible to fulfill my duties at church that morning. So, as you might expect, with a couple hours of sleep, I kind of overslept till the very last moment, so I had to rush to get ready. Didn't have time to really get myself cleaned up, and as you may expect as well, after a long day of partying, I wasn't completely out of it, but I also, after just a couple hours of sleep, wasn't quite right in the head either. But I showed up to church this morning to perform my duties, to do what I had promised to do. And in my sorry state, I'm sure still stinking a little bit of alcohol, and I smoked at the time as well, which again isn't something I'd condone, but it's just a fact of life that it's an unwise decision I was making in my life at that time. So I arrived at church, glossy-eyed, a little bit smelly, but ready to do my work. And I could get by. I did the job enough. And I will tell you that 25 years later, I can't remember much of what went on at church. I can't remember any of the music we sang. I don't recall what the message was about that morning. But I will tell you, I remember the looks of the people. I remember the looks of the people who saw this dirty, smelly guy here at church and kind of had that look of, what is someone like that doing in my church this morning? And I remember also the faces and the people who came up to me and said, we are glad you are here. We How have you been? What have you been up to? You know, this is a church I'd grown up in, so it's not just a church I randomly walked into. And I remember those faces of rejection, and I remember also the faces of the couple people who truly wanted to come up, and even in my state, see how I'd been, see what I'd been up to, and just let me know, such as it was, they were glad to see me in that place. I remember after 25 years, the faces of rejection as well as the faces of love and acceptance. So today, as we finish up this study of Jesus at the woman at the well, I truly want us to look and examine ourselves, to ask ourselves how we're doing. What is the image we are leaving people with when they leave this place? Are we truly living into our calling as a place of refuge and a people of hope? Are we giving off a face of rejection when we leave here, or are we letting people leave here with a face of love and acceptance, no matter who they are, no matter what state they may come into our church or where they are at in life? As we look at this, Jesus and the woman have really wrapped up their conversation. You know, as Jesus sat down at the well and the woman came to meet him, he has broken down all kinds of barriers as he simply asked the Samaritan woman for a drink, which led them to Jesus sharing about living water, what it can mean to never thirst again if you just take Jesus as your Savior and find salvation in him alone. They went on to talk about the lifestyle that this woman was living and how Jesus knew the sins she was committing but never condemned her for them. And then they also talked a little bit about what it was to truly be in worship, to which Jesus said, you don't need to worry about all those old things, where and how you worship, for I am changing all that. For Jesus will change all that through his once for all sacrifice that he makes for each and every one of us. After they've wrapped up their conversation, we see that's the point where the disciples are returning from their trip to town to get some supplies. And they are surprised to see Jesus alone at the well speaking with this woman. You know, Jesus is violating all kinds of customs, talking to a Samaritan woman alone. They were surprised. They would naturally have some questions, but by now they also know when you ask Jesus some questions, it doesn't always go well for you because he's going to give you the honest answer. So they stay quiet. While the disciples are returning, the woman decides that it's time for her to take this opportunity and make her exit. So she heads back to town, and she is so excited about her encounter that she leaves her water jar behind at the well. The very reason she came to the well has been forgotten about and made irrelevant through her encounter with Jesus Christ. And when she gets back to town, she then shares her simple testimony with the people. As she says, come see a man who told me everything I ever did. Could this be the Christ? She wonders, could this be Christ? Could this be Messiah? Could this be the man that we are told would come and reestablish God's true kingdom? She's at least open to that possibility and wants to explore that with the people of her town. Even though this woman is an outcast in her community, the power and the truth of what she is proclaiming about Jesus makes the people take notice. For the power of Jesus overshadows everything else. Jesus makes valid that which this woman is proclaiming. His message takes a woman seen as an outcast and piques the curiosity of the people in town, so much so that they want to go and see this man Jesus for themselves. While all this is going on in town, the disciples then are trying to tend to Jesus' physical needs, to see if he wants some food that they have brought back. To which Jesus then tells them, I've already got everything I need. Which he's really just kind of restating what he's already talked to the woman about the living water. He's just saying it in a little bit of a different way. He again has something important to share that the people can't fully grasp, as he says, what's truly important isn't what I eat. What brings me nourishment and fulfillment is doing the work of the Father. Jesus is obviously still has that human nature. He needs to eat, but he really isn't concerned about it in this moment because he is so blessed. He is so filled up after he has shared and revealed truth to this outcast woman. It shows us that when we focus truly on doing God's will and work, everything else becomes secondary. We don't need to worry about the things of this world and our worldly concerns if we truly are living and striving to do all that Christ calls us to. It means we spend time studying the Bible for ourselves. It means we spend time actively in prayer and fellowshipping with each other, with all the believers around us, as well as going out and sharing the truth that we learn, sharing the gospel with the lost out in our world. It brings us to the place that Jesus said in Matthew 4:4 when he says, man does not live on bread alone, but on every word that comes from the mouth of God. So we need to get to work. We need to share the truth of Jesus with others. For there is so much pain and hurting all over. We need to get out and do our part to share the hope that we have found. So as Jesus is speaking and teaching again with his disciples, there are people actively coming to town to meet him, to see what this Jesus truly is all about. The seeds are being planted. The time of a harvest is coming. There is great joy that comes whenever we share Jesus with other people. When we recognize that we all have an important part to play in growing God's kingdom. We recognize that not one of us has to have all the answers. Not one of us can do everything, but we all have a part to play. When you look at all this woman shared, she said, this guy said everything, he knew everything about me. Could it be the Christ? And through her simple message, lives are transformed. For the groundwork was laid, just as the groundwork has been laid here at First Baptist to do many amazing things yet to come. We have a rich, strong history of people who have laid a firm foundation for us. And we are still here. We are still here after many challenges, which shows us that we have amazing things yet to do in our community, and the time is at hand. Just as Jesus has shared and ministered to this outcast woman, we see the results in verse 39 when it says, many of the Samaritans from that town believed in him because of the woman's testimony. He told me everything I ever did. This outcast woman shared just this little nugget, just this little bit. She shared what she could. She shared what she knew after just a brief encounter with Jesus, and many people came to believe as a result of this testimony. Her simple, faithful testimony plus an encounter with Jesus led to the salvation of many within her community. An outcast woman who was shown love and compassion and understanding by Jesus helped bring salvation to a community through her simple willingness to do what she could and share what she knew. For we are all called to share what we can, to speak and to testify of Jesus Christ and all that he has done in our lives. To recognize that there is a bountiful harvest all around us, ready for the reaping. And it is truly time to look and reflect on ourselves and ask, how are we doing at reaching the lost around us? How are we doing at helping the hurting and the outcast in our society? Because there is such a bountiful harvest available to us. Are we doing everything we can? Are we sharing the simple message of Jesus Christ, just as the woman at the well did? Are we sharing what we know? Sharing everything that Jesus has done for us? Are we saying, listen to what Jesus has done for me? Jesus can do the same thing for you. Through a simple testimony, communities can be transformed. So as we ask ourselves, as we reflect on how we are doing, and as I said, this is the first message we ever shared together. And I said ministry needs to be about this. Ministry needs to be about making sure outcasts know they are seen and loved by God. We've got to ask ourselves over the last 3 years, how are we doing? And can we say we're failing in that? Have we done nothing to reach the lost? Are the people, the rejects and the outcasts of society that wander in our door feeling more rejection when we come here? And I don't think we can call our time together a failure. When I honestly reflect on the last few years, there have been some unique, some challenging people. There have been some strange people that have walked through our doors. And I truly feel that they have been shown love and acceptance by many of us. And if you're sitting there thinking that, well, I don't think there's any strange or weird people in our congregation, that may be a moment where you have to reflect on Jesus. But anyway, so I don't think, as I look and I consider all the people that have come in our doors, that there have been some challenges. There have been some unique people, and I can truly say, and I've talked to many of them, that they really felt love, they felt acceptance and a warmth here. So I don't think we can call our time together so far a failure. But could we say that's really mission accomplished? That there are people just flocking through the doors because they know that this is the place to go when you are hurting in our community, that they know that this is the place you can go if you are rejected and you've been outcast or cast aside from other places? Is this a place where everyone knows they will receive unconditional love no matter what? And when we look at our numbers and the amount of people, the amount of space we have available in the pews, I don't think we can say, it's mission accomplished and we've mission successful and we have done everything I can. Everything we can together. But really, we probably fall someplace in between. For as I said, we've shown people love that walk through our doors. We've shown some difficult people love. We've helped lift up some challenging people and put them in a better place. And as I've thought about our time together, we've done a lot of good in our community. And as I think about our location, we have one of the very best locations in town, where we get a lot of people who just kind of wander by, and sometimes they're just looking for the library or whatever, but a lot of times people are just sort of out wandering, and they maybe see what this place is all about, and they come in, and we've had an opportunity to fellowship with some of those people, whether it's throughout the week, but a lot of them will come in on a Sunday morning, and so I think we've shown a lot of love. But I've also thought and I've reflected on some other things throughout the last several weeks as we've been looking at this message. And I think about the time, it was really just after the first of the year. If you remember, some friends of Riker's actually who came here. It was a young family from town, and actually as we've gotten to know them over the last several months, it turns out that they have some connections, and some of their family lived down the road from Carrie's family growing up. So when the extended family was in town for kind of Christmas time celebration, they said, hey, let's go to the church with these people. So that's really the reason they came. But when this young family came in, we were very excited. Everybody greeted them very warmly. Everybody wanted to spend a moment making them feel welcome, which is great. That's amazing. It's a great thing. They enjoyed their time here as they felt welcome, and I've had many people ask about them after they were here. It's a great thing. I've had a lot of people ask, if you remember, John and Lily and little Charlie that came here for a couple of years. I've had many people ask, whatever happened to them, or KP and her 4 little ones and that young family that were here for a while and celebrated with us. And I've had many people ask, how are all those young families doing? And just so you know, John and Lily, they moved to Massachusetts. They got a new job. They're doing well, and we keep in contact a little bit. And KP moved to Mississippi, and they're doing pretty well. And we keep in contact with them. But those are kind of the people that we really strive for. Those are the ones that we get excited about, those young families. And we did a lot to make all those people feel welcome and a part of our family. But there was also a time just after I just really started here, within my first few weeks, where there was a young gentleman who was homeless off and on, and he would come and shovel our sidewalks, not because he was looking for money, he just didn't have anything to do. So we developed a relationship, and he came to church periodically on Sunday mornings, and he would break the law periodically just to have a place to stay, because he wanted to get arrested and have a place to stay for a couple nights. And many of you got a chance to meet him as he was here, and he was in the community for a while, and now he's gone off into the world. And guess how many of us have ever asked whatever happened to that guy and how he is doing? Next week we're going to celebrate the Midwest Mission as they come here, and they celebrate all that God is doing through the important work at the mission as people that are struggling with addictions and a hard life seek Jesus as the solution for their problem. But then I reflect on a few months back when there was a gentleman who was active in his addictions and his struggles, and we welcomed him. We were very friendly and gracious to him while he was here, even though he was a bit of a challenge in the middle of service, wasn't he? We're very honest. But how many of us have asked or wondered how that gentleman is doing after he left? And I bring up those things not because I want anyone to feel bad or that we're not doing what we're called to do. So please don't feel bad about any of that. That's not my intention. For all those challenging people that have come to us, we did what we could. We've shown them love and tolerance and acceptance. We don't have anything to feel bad on that point. It's just, as I've thought about some of our attitudes towards those people over the last several weeks, I just see where we can continue to grow and recognize that if we want to grow, if we want to step forward, if we want to move forward as a powerful congregation and a source of hope in our community, we need to truly grow as God desires us to. That means we need to seek out and love everyone that God sends here, whether it's a young family with some awesome little kids, or whether it's an elderly person with nothing to offer, or whether it's somebody who's a little bit intoxicated. Our job is to truly show love and acceptance to all those people and to actively seek them. To recognize that when they walk out of our doors, we still need to care about each and every one of them, that we need to do our part to seek them, to make sure they know that regardless, they are truly welcome here, no matter who their story, what their story is. And so, as we look to growth, as we look to stepping forward and being relevant, obviously, we need all these people. We just need to make sure our attitude is right to be ready for whatever and however God wants us to grow. As I reflect on growth, on moving forward, obviously we need to grow. We need more people. And that's not about getting more money or balancing the books better. The money isn't something I worry about. I probably should a little bit, because if we don't have money, I don't have a job, or at least don't get paid But, it's not my concern. Okay? I know that God will be faithful to us if we are faithful to what God calls us to do. So please don't think I'm just trying to get more offering. It's not even about having bigger attendance numbers or being the hip, cool, flashy church in town. Okay? I look and I recognize that we are a place that needs to grow, because as I look out at all of you, as I have gotten to know each and every one of you over the last few years, I realize just how amazing each and every one of you are. I recognize that this is truly an amazing place, blessed by God to do so many great things for our community. We aren't the biggest church in town, nor do we need to be. We might not have the flashiest service in town, but we have a service where God is celebrated and lifted up. And we have so much to offer, and we need people to recognize that. So as we look at growth, I recognize the need to grow is really about the fact that if you spend any amount of time out with people in our community or our region, you know that there is pain and there is hurting and there are struggles with hopelessness by so many people. And we are an amazing, uniquely blessed place of hope with so much to offer. That it is time to truly